keep it to an hour if we can. At your place, you should have a copy of the agenda, the minutes from last time, a copy of the schedule that is in a little bit longer piece of paper, a copy of the budget, and then a couple of pieces that are stapled together, and what that is just a couple of the draft, a couple versions of the draft site plan to sort of just get a perspective of what the site's gonna look like. All of those I'll be sharing on the screen too. I'll share my screen when we get to those. Those that aren't in the room will be able to see what I'm talking about. Let me do that now. So we're going to start with the temp station. And Dave, I don't know if you want to
Yeah, I can
give kind
a
of
quick
overview while I get the slides up.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mill City Construction has began with the construction. They are currently working on all the demolition. They've been able to successfully remove all the process filter tanks from the first level, as well as some of the process piping in the basement level, and again on the first level. You can see some of the progress photos here. They're currently be working on jackhammering those pads on the first level. That picture to the left, right where JD scrollers. You can see one of the exterior panels was removed from the building so that they could remove the tanks in one piece. Also the photo on the right, they went ahead and did the site work to lay down the geomat and the 6-inch of compacted stone. They still need to install the sleeper boards on the edges of those and tie in the pins. But big improvement to the parking situation to the rear of the site.
Dave, hang on one second. We might be on mute on that. I just realized I'm not sure if we unmuted the room.
Okay.
Let me just stop sharing for a second. Hi, Alex and Kat. Oh, yeah. Alex and Kathy, sorry about that. We didn't unmute the room, so you missed some riveting conversation from Dave. But hopefully you were able to see the slides we were sharing. And I'm going to bring them back up. Sorry, Dave, for interrupting. Go right.
That's all right. I can repeat. So for those that didn't hear, there's Mill City Construction's working on currently demoing the concrete pads on the first floor where the filter tanks were. The photo on the left of the screen. Filter tanks were removed at the end of last week. They're currently also working on removing lighting, various pipes and other equipment in the basement and the first floor. They will be moving forward with a general demo of the office areas in the upcoming weeks, and then reinstall of the fixturing, leveling the floors once those concrete pads are out. They're going to be moving on to light gauge framing, and again, there's another block wall removal in one of the storage areas. And that's kind of the upcoming activity for the next few weeks. So we have a weekly call with them to monitor the progress, look at the 3-week look ahead, talk about any open RFIs or issues. So all things are on track. They intend to be done within their allotted schedule, which was 5 months from the start date, which is, for the schedule, they should be done by the middle of August. So yeah, that's the report. And then I mentioned prior while we were on mute, they also already installed all the stone for the exterior parking areas, laid the geomat, excavated the 6 inches of existing soil, put in the crushed stone. They're currently waiting for the sleeper boards that will sit along the exterior edge of the stone to hold that in place. Excuse me. So Kevin or Tom, I don't know if there's anything else to expand on, but that's essentially the temporary status report in a nutshell.
So just to add to that, the pitches are courtesy of Dave. We'll have better ones for next time. But the reason we used these was just to give everybody, most of you had been in there and seen that big room, especially on the next slide here. You may remember that this room had those giant tanks and all that piping. So you can see the progress they've made in such a short period of time. Unfortunately, this is probably going to be the hardest part, is jackhammering out those 2 big concrete slabs there. But important to note that although this piece of the project also slipped a little, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the main project, we're still projected to be done on time. providing everything goes on well with this part of the project. So that won't slow us down. That won't be a reason for us to not be able to move into the new building on time at the temps, from the existing to the temp space. So that's just the temp space. Anybody have any questions specifically on the temp space?
John, what do you mean by slip delivery?
So on the original schedule for this part of the project, we were supposed to have the contractor starting, and I think
It was March 3rd. It slipped by 2 weeks, and that was due to the DPW's decontamination project.
so we had to do the decontamination of the actual hours that were in there. So that took, because of the cold February, that took longer than it was supposed to, because instead of being able to empty a tank a day, they were only doing like a third of a tank. So that stretched out. Certain days, they couldn't even do it because of the cold weather. So that forced our contractor to not be able to start for 2 weeks. But they have a makeup schedule approved and still expect to be done on time.
I have it's not really a question, I'm just trying to clarify something, because we had so many different projects going on that I completely forgot whether the temporary police station now, was that once considered, consideration to put the new police station in where the water treatment plant was that considered at one point?
It was one of the sites that was considered.
Because people were asking me questions about, and why was it denied?
I think it just wasn't the priority site. It was a site that it just, the existing site rose to the top as the board and the department's first choice.
But it was considered at one point.
It was in the mix. We looked at that site. It was, we would have had to renovate and expand the site. The site itself, as is, isn't big enough for all of the operations.
Right.
For example, we can't have the shooting range there. We can't have any detainment there. So we can't keep, I don't know if the right word is prisoners, but we can't keep folks there. Yeah, we can't have any guests,
Detaining?
whether overnight or short-term.
Guests.
So,
Yeah. Okay, I just,
It was also, we were extremely limited by where the wetlands were in the floodplain.
yeah, I know there's a lot of wetland.
There was, when we did the analysis of how much square footage we needed for the site, for the parking, the auxiliary building, the whole operations, it just wasn't enough room to be able to put it in there.
I just couldn't remember what the situation was, and I had people asking me questions, so I just want to be able to respond back to them.
okay, we're on to the new station, sort of status report and schedule. Why don't we start with schedule? David, I'm guessing you want to take that. Then we'll move on to some site plans that I can share, but you also have in front of you. And then some renderings that we can take a peek at too.
So as far as schedule goes for the new build, KBA has completed the design development package, and they've moved on to beginning the construction documentation package. So that will be in progress over the next few months. During that time, we will, of course, be meeting with the planning board to get site plan approval. The submission is today, is that correct, Kevin?
Yep.
To be on the May 15th agenda. I put in a placeholder.
June.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
It's the June meeting, right? Yeah.
yeah.
June 5th? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can cross out that May 15th date. So we'll be meeting with the planning board on June 5th. We also put in some placeholders for meeting with conservation and stormwater review. As I understand, the stormwater report is in progress, and we should have that shortly. As soon as we have that, we'll be flipping that over to Eileen and folks for their review and get on their agenda. I've also laid out the next building committee meetings through August. The next update will just continue to add these meetings to the schedule as needed. CHA will be sending out an RFQ draft for pre-qualification for filed subtrades as well as general contractors. We expect to advertise that in early May and perform that process as laid out in the schedule here. We always bake in an additional 3 weeks for reissuing for non-responsive trades. We have found that the elevator filed subtrade for whatever reason, never submits their qualifications. So we're required to reissue the RFQ to see if they will respond. If they don't, we can default that scope of work to the general contractor. So that's built into the schedule. So we anticipating having our pre-qualification of all contractors done by mid-June, which will be done prior to our construction documents and final estimate being completed, which our final construction documents are slated to be done by early July. And again, we'll be looking to publish those documents for bidding by Wednesday, July 9th. That is our target date. That leads into a 3-week filed sub-bid period, as well as a in tandem general contractor period that extends an additional 2 weeks. So they take the filed sub-bid results, package those up, and ultimately submit their full package. We're targeting to have that by Friday, the 15th of August, which happens to be the substantial completion date of the current temporary station. So timed up pretty well, so we got to make sure that we maintain these dates. Once we assuming we get favorable bids, we'd be looking to meet with the select board the following week to get their approval to move forward to contract. And then there'll be a couple of weeks of contract execution and eventually a notice to proceed given to the contractor. In a perfect world, we're able to start right after Labor Day weekend, but give or take a week or two for that contract negotiation and execution, and just the formalities for getting those approvals in place.
So Dave, let me just stop you for a sec. So at our next meeting, what we'll have is an updated schedule that if we don't make that, if we can't put our bids out on July and they have to go out later than that, what does that do to our schedule? And we'll have an update of what does that mean for the project as a whole. I mean, anybody that has built any buildings know that you don't want to be doing foundations in the winter or dealing with winter conditions in any projects. So we'll have to take a look at that and have an updated schedule from the team to say, if this doesn't happen, what is the result of that? Which is just time, but what does that really mean as far as time? You know, if we go out a month, what does that put us like for getting out of the ground? So I know there's concern, several people have mentioned it to me already. Barbara, you can go first. But the planning group has mentioned to us all along about the worry about missing what was going to be an April meeting and a May meeting, and now we're in June, which we technically have submitted or are submitting
In the process of
today, which will get us ahead of the deadline for that actual June meeting. But that isn't the only thing that has to happen. So I know, Barbara, you wanted to talk specifically about the
Right.
schedule for this, so why don't you go,
Yeah.
and then whoever wants to go next can.
I think you all know I'm very supportive of this project, but I am not pleased with the pace with which this has been going. In this document, now, it did say you were going to come to planning board mid-May, the May 15th meeting. That deadline's long gone. Now we're looking at June. But on this schedule, you had that you would come to the planning board meeting May 15th and you'd get approval June 5th. There's no world in which this gets approved in, one meeting with us and then the second meeting you come and get approved. There's a lot that needs to be done. We haven't seen a site plan. We have to do a site plan review. All the other departments have to review all of this and then get back to us with their comments. We can't rush that. We need to have the neighbors come and speak at our meetings. There has to be a design review process because this is in the town overlay district. We have to do landscaping. This is not going to happen in 2 meetings. And in my opinion, it's going to take a miracle for you to be ready to actually break ground in September. We have 1 meeting in June and 1 meeting in July, which was why we urged you to get the site plan review to us in April. Now it's not coming till June. I don't see how you can possibly make that September date. And
I think that, I'm sorry, I don't want to
I'm
interrupt.
very concerned that, and I don't understand why it's been this long a delay. I mean, a delay of 2 weeks is one thing. This is not 2 weeks. This is 2 months.
Yep, so, and I totally agree about the delay and the worry about not making it and exactly what it means. I think some of those things can happen once the official submission is made, the DCM thing can happen. You know, the first meeting of the planning board is almost 2 months away, so there is time. If we're coming on June 5th, it's the April 10th now. So I think the deadline to submit for that May
yeah.
15th meeting was actually only last week. So,
You'll make the June meeting.
yeah, I just meant some of the DCM work or the other departments that need to get back to the planning board, some of that will happen and can happen before, and usually would happen before the first meeting with the planning board anyway. So I think we'll be able to check
Yeah.
those boxes, but we certainly share your concern about what happens if we
Right.
likely don't meet the September, getting out of the ground in September. Or
I think it's
breaking,
going to be very,
starting
very
the demo in
difficult for
September.
you to make that September date. And my concern is, yes, you have plenty of time to submit for the June meeting, but every time we say this, it doesn't happen. We wait for the documents and they never come. And if you miss the June date, you're screwed.
Yep.
John, is there any way,
Everybody got that?
John, is there any way that you can develop a schedule with the planning board to expedite, you know, the things that need to be done? If, for example, if the planning board is sort of behind a rock and a hard place right now, what can we do at this end to expedite the things that have to be done and get something in place right away so that we know that you're going to meet that deadline, you know, in August or whenever it is, so that you don't find out all of a sudden you're having a meeting and you're saying, hey, we've got half the things not approved. Looks like we're going to have construction in December, and, you know, we don't want to avoid that. So I would suggest trying to expedite a schedule right now in conjunction with the planning board to say, you know, we can do this.
Yep. I don't want to speak for the actual board, but the planning staff have been great and helped guide us to this point. Once that official submission happens, I feel like we'll
By
be able
5
to
o'clock
get
tonight.
by 5 o'clock tonight. I feel like that's when we'll really be able to get the most out of all department staff, because they'll have the actual documents to look at and say, here's where you're going to need some more work, or here's the path to get to. So really, that's goal number one, but nothing really starts till you actually get to your planning board meeting and have your actual hearing. And there's boxes you have to check, as Barbara laid them out.
And
That's how the process works. So I guess there could always be conversation about extra meetings, if possible, but there's specific deadlines for a reason, and those are 6 weeks before the planning board meeting happens. You have to have everything in. So, you know, we're going to be in that window very soon.
Well, I think that knowing that, and that you have that deadline, and knowing that the planning board has its issues and concerns of things that have to be done within that time frame, just put together a schedule. And it sounds like tonight you're going to be able to figure that out with the data that you're going to get for tonight, and just ensure that, hey, listen, you know, we not only are putting a schedule in place, but we're putting a schedule in place that could probably have to deal with some speed bumps along the way, so that we have some kind of a buffer.
Yep.
Because otherwise, you'll be scrambling around, and then now you find out that certain things weren't approved, and that's going to push off the construction, and then you're really behind the 8 ball.
As well, I want to be clear that tonight is just one of that really doesn't help us with knowing exactly on the schedule. That just means we've made the deadline to
Sure.
start the
Right.
process.
Sure.
That still doesn't bring the June 5th meeting closer to us. But your point is well taken. How can we work together to make sure when we get to June 5th, the path has been laid to be able to a smooth approval process. So,
And what I really want to avoid is, I want to make sure that, you know, we, the planning board and staff, have been waiting and waiting and waiting, begging to get these documents, when you give them, I don't want us rushing that part of the process. This is an extremely important project for the town. We have to do it right. And I don't want it to come to us and then have the pressure be, turn this around in 2 meetings, otherwise it's planning board's fault that we're not breaking ground in September, because I don't think we should rush that part of the process.
Agreed. I mean, we're hopeful that, between April 10th and July, we can work out all of those.
But then you're coming to the planning board, and there are members of the planning board who are going to be looking at this with intense scrutiny. I do not expect your site plan to be approved in one meeting. I do not expect the design to be improved in one meeting. Do you agree with me? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if any of you watched the planning board meeting where we presented the preliminary designs. It did not go well. I personally think it looks great, but I'm only one member of that board, and it's going to be an arduous process.
Agreed?
John,
Okay.
can I ask you-
Yes.
Obviously, there's a delay to the planning board. What's causing that delay? I don't even know if you can answer that, but why?
It's
why-
our submission.
What's that?
It's our submission. Our submission was due, so we were going to be trying to go to the May 15th or 17th. I don't know.
Supposed to be
the
April.
second May meeting, our deadline passed last week where we weren't able to get our submission, our final submission submitted in
We
time.
missed the deadline?
We missed last week's deadline.
Right, but it was supposed to come in April. Then May 15th was the later date, and now we're looking at June.
We just weren't ready.
We had trouble getting the geotechnical engineer doing their soils reports. And they did their test pits 2 weeks ago. We got the preliminary logs back from the test pits and the borings last week, and it was what was holding up our stormwater calculations in our design.
And let me be clear, I am not holding John or the police station, the police department responsible for this. That's why we hire professionals to handle this.
No, and to your point, exactly, I'd hate to see them just throw it, you say, hey, we need this quick, and then
Right.
the planning board gets blamed.
Well, that's also in part why we didn't meet that deadline, because it wasn't ready. So we didn't have all the materials and information packaged up. Kevin's consultants need to finish their reports, need to finish their design plan, and we were targeting to try to get it done by the 2nd, but to Kevin's point, geotechnical engineering wasn't completed. So we would have had an incomplete submission, which would have inevitably been kicked down, wouldn't have been accepted.
It wouldn't have been accepted, so if there are materials that have been submitted on for the April 2nd deadline.
What's a little concerning to me as a member of the select board is we're at the very early stages of this, and we're already hitting delays.
Yes.
So we've got 2 years. We can't afford to keep having delay after delay after delay. So whoever's delaying it, missing deadlines, whatever.
Was there a technical reason why you couldn't meet the deadline? Was there something beyond our control or your control that you couldn't meet the deadline?
It was primarily we didn't have the geotechnical information.
And why was it that we didn't have that? I'm just asking.
They get delayed getting out there with the frost on the ground to be able to do test pits to find.
So it couldn't have been, it was impossible to have it done because of the condition of the ground?
No. It was scheduling.
It was scheduled. They getting.
Yeah, see, I think that we got to get a tighter schedule so that we can, that's why I'm saying you build a schedule, and then when you're building the schedule, you build in, some kinds of obstacles that you might be faced so that you can meet that deadline. Developing a PERT chart, for example, you figure out what your end result is going to be, and then you back into that in terms of the things that have to be done to meet that. So I think, hearing what Barbara's saying about the issues at the planning board in terms of people, being on board, I think you got to run a tighter schedule.
Are there any other delays we're anticipating? I mean, can we tighten up everything else to make sure we're kind of back on track? Or is there anything else that may hinder us going forward that we could look at?
It's really how long it's going to take us to get approval. So I don't want that to sound like we're trying to place blame on another board. That isn't what I'm trying to say at all. We missed the deadline. It's our fault. We put ourselves in this position.
No, I'm just saying, is there any
If
other?
we make it, Mike,
Yeah.
then we can still break ground in September or demo in September.
That
Is
means
that
in order to,
possible?
on your schedule, when did you say you were going to have completed construction documents to go out to bid?
July.
Early July.
You're not even going to have approval from the planning board by then. So how can you have final construction documents if you don't have a final approval from the planning board? It's not a realistic schedule. If you don't meet with us till June, the second meeting is July. There's no way you're going to get approval the first meeting. When is the second meeting in July?
Only one meeting in July.
There's only one meeting in July, July
July
17th. I don't think you're going to get approval in 2 meetings. I think it's going to take 3. So we can schedule another one, but you're still not going to be able to have construction documents ready in the middle of July. So that's already wrong.
And I think we knew that the schedule's going to have to change, and hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have
Right. And I'm-
officially submitted tonight. We'll
Yeah.
have been able to get some feedback from town departments, and then we'll have to have a couple options
Right.
that say 2 meetings, 3 meetings, schedule an extra meeting. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And I don't mean to be difficult. I don't want to be the negative Nelly, but I've been quietly asking about the schedule and complaining about the schedule for months and being ignored. So today I decided I'm going to be loud and uncomfortable. And this is it. This schedule is not going to work.
Yeah, I think all of the feedback, criticism, whatever we want to call it, is warranted. It's, I don't think it's uncomfortable at all. I think
Right.
everybody expected this was coming because.
But we still have
team
an
is the one that
unrealistic
dropped the
schedule.
ball.
That's my problem.
And you won't till our next meeting.
Okay.
So we'll,
When's that going to be?
our meetings are the second Thursday of every month for the rest of this calendar year at least.
So, okay.
Well, I just want to say, that's your personal opinion. That's your opinion. We have 2 new people on the planning board, so let's see what happens.
No, I love the project, and I'm in support of the
Yeah, but
project.
you're the one that's talking about delay. That's your opinion. Let's see what happens.
It's not my opinion that we were delayed.
It is your opinion.
It was
It is your
supposed to
opinion.
come
What else
before
is
the
it?
planning board in
It's your
April.
opinion. We have 2 new people on the planning board. Let's see what they have to say.
No, the delay has already happened. It was supposed to come to the planning board in April, then it moved back till May, now it's moved back till June. That's the delay.
You've
It's not the
already said
people on the
that, but-
planning board who I expect are going to delay things. That's
You don't
just
know
the
that.
nature.
You don't
No,
know
I said
that.
it's not the people on the planning board that I expect who will delay it. It is the nature of the process. There's a certain amount of things that have to happen, no matter how willing or unwilling the members are. It still has to happen, and it takes more than 2 meetings.
So I think everybody has a point. Anybody else? Mike, go ahead.
I just want to clarify something you just said. So is that locked in second Thursday of the month for us for the rest of the calendar year?
Yes.
Should I just put that down as a standing meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Mike?
John, the borings that came back from the geologist, does that indicate to you that the site is proper for the type of building that will be done?
Yes.
Because you can have a lot of risk when you go to first excavate and you run into surprises. Then things get delayed because you have to do remediation. So those borings gave us the information we needed
Yeah.
to feel confident that we can do what we need to do there.
Yeah, I had both my civil engineer for storm drainage and my structural engineer create a boring plan and a test pit plan so that they would get the information that they needed so that they could do the proper engineering for the systems. All of that was done. We just got all the technical information back last week. The soil isn't great. It's very densely compacted glacial till, which doesn't have great permeability or permeability, but we have a system that has been designed to meet those requirements, that do meet the stormwater requirements for the town of Burlington, is what's going to be submitted tonight, or by the end of the day today for the formal submittal process. Structural engineering, the soil is actually ideal for them. It's got great bearing capacity, so they actually told me that they felt that they could actually lighten up some of the foundations that they were designing to, because it is a much better soil than they were hoping it was going to be. But we do know, we always knew we were going to probably have under slab drainage. We were also going to have drainage material around the foundation walls. We've already built that into the project, so it was basically confirmed. And the geotech confirmed what we were able to glean from Mass GIS and other sources for soil characteristics, was confirmed with the actual borings that we got last week. So we're just waiting to get the final touches on the stormwater calculations that will be, I think, one of the last things that gets issued this afternoon and updated to or uploaded to the website.
And Mike, I'll just add that the boring report is because of the type of drilling, not how you feel when you read it.
While we're on the subject, I just want to make sure you know, obviously you have the planning board and conservation list on here. Have you contacted the Board of Health, and were they there to witness any of the test pits?
From what I understand, Board of Health was there.
Okay.
I know that they worked closely with them to be able to leave some of the test pits open so that they could be able to witness what they wanted to see.
Okay.
So there was a good cooperation between the Geotech, DPW, and the other town boards that needed to be able to be notified of it, and they were made of it. The information and the situation was made available to them in advance, so they were able to be on site.
Okay, and I would definitely just reiterate of still reaching out to the Board of Health to see if you have to get on one of their agendas as well, because as we're talking about potential delays, want that set up front.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of them has I think Conscom has today as a deadline also for their next hearing.
I'm not sure what their deadlines are.
We've got those 3 being submitted to today.
Okay.
So that everybody's getting all the information at the same time. Unfortunately, it's a little late. It's late for the deadline that passed last week, but there was no way we could get it done for that. And as you said, if we submitted without it, we bounced anyhow.
Wouldn't accept it, okay.
We'd be in the same position. So we made the tough decision to say, we are where we are. We'll come and we have to take the ire of the rest of the community that was expecting it before. But we knew that was coming, and it's not uncomfortable. I mean, it is uncomfortable, but it's not unwarranted.
So site is, Caleb, you done? Yep, okay. So site is next, and in front of you, you have something that looks like this, 2 pages that are together, and it's sort of a, those are 4 pages that come from the submission that I don't really know what any of this stuff means, and probably more than this committee needs to do, but the reason I was sharing them was to kind of give a perspective of what the site was going to look like as far as visualizing it on the map, how far it is from the property line, what the parking looks like, where the building's going to sit on the site. Most of this you've already seen, but this is sort of what was a couple, not all of the site plans that are in the submission. One that...
Can I ask a question about this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I'm looking at this, the building in purple, there's the squiggly line, that's the property line between the current police station property and what is in the field, correct?
Correct.
And then is the line, the property line between the field and Grandview, is that, that's not in the cross-hatched part, it's all the way further down where it says, I should bring my glasses to these meetings. Fields. Yeah. Yeah, so that's, okay, thank you. So squiggly line is the property line between current police station and the field. And where is the line between the field and Grandview?
So that's this line.
Okay, good. That's what I was hoping you were going to say. Thank you.
That was a little
Okay.
the Grandview site that was taken out of.
Okay, thank
So this was to give you a visual of how much or how little of that field.
Right, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Thank you.
So again, those are mostly just to look at. You've seen the site before, but since we had a little bit more updated plans and they look nice and fancy, I thought I would throw them on the screen.
Really, the biggest difference is that we were able to get some of the grading squared away a little bit better towards the front of the building. The curved arch in the front is a retaining wall. I'm hoping that we might be able to use that, clad that with some of the stone from the existing building foundation to try and keep our promise to the Historic Commission that we were going to reuse as many materials as we could, that we were going to look to see that. We have to make sure that some of the paint on it is not lead containing, but the intention is that that would be a spot where we could have a retaining wall that would be kind of a nod to the previous building. But then the rest of the building, all the way around it, primarily is essentially flat, where I've got an existing about an 8-inch foundation wall that'll be showing. We'll have that as a finished concrete. I don't like to see form ties and joints within these things. So we'll be covering that with parched concrete, so it'll look like a nice finished base to the building as it comes out of the ground. But other than that, the rest of the site plan is essentially the same as what you folks have seen previously in the illustrative rendered one. That was just one kind of as it's evolved into being a real working drawing.
So if we're good with site,
Quick question?
Yep.
Real quick. Who do I talk to start planning for the moving of sculptures and, more importantly, the sculptural benches? Because looking at this, I think 2 of them are going to have to move, and I don't know who I'm supposed to talk to. This doesn't need to be, this
that'll be
committee
the
doesn't really-
OPM, so we'll get Dave, but only for one more day. So this will be the OPM.
I'll get your information before I leave today. Thank you.
And that'll be something
Follow
we'll,
up to that?
yep.
I know it's built into the budget to move them, but who's moving them?
That's what Barbara wants to
Yeah,
talk about,
that's-
coordinating. It'll probably end up being the contractor we hire, but it doesn't have to be. So we're probably a little bit a ways from that, but we'll add it as a standing agenda item. We'll just call it Sculpture Park or.
Yeah, I think we can probably deal with most of that offline, because I don't think all these people necessarily need to be involved in that detail, but I need to get the ball started.
So we're going to do the renderings in facade, but I'm going to go load them on there because they just share better. If I share from my screen, it kind of gets small in the room. So why don't we do budget review and approval of minutes while I do that, and then I should be ready. So, Tom, you want to take over for budget review and approval of minutes? And Dave's going to handle that.
Dave, you're going to do the budget?
Yeah, there's really no major major updates to highlight on the budget, other than the build-to-date column. Everything else remains the same from the prior update in March. We had the design development estimates that did come in within our budgeted allowances for the existing building demo, the outbuilding, and the new building construction. So we feel comfortable where we are with the current budget and the variance of the temporary construction. So our estimates were coming in just about, Kevin, yours was, remind me the number?
32.3, I think.
32.3, and CHA's was like 31.8.
Something like that.
So, with the allowance we have remaining of 33,674, we feel really good about the construction budget line. Again, other than that, there is no major updates to highlight other than the amount billed to date.
I think also important to note is that we haven't had any budget busters yet. We also haven't really gone out to bid for anything. But, so as of now, we have no devastating news or even any negative news other than the piece that they just talked about. Sorry, tapping and talking at the same time probably shouldn't be good. With the temporary site, which we talked about at the last meeting.
Good on that, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, so Kate had sent out the minutes for everybody to review. Did everybody get them, get a chance to review? Anybody have any comments, questions, or concerns on the minutes from the March 6th meeting? Seeing none, on behalf of the chair, would take a motion to accept the minutes?
I move the motion.
Second.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. You're abstaining?
Yep.
You got potential political,
I know, that was nice.
President and Emley, too. President and What do we got for it?
You free Monday night?
The next meeting date we also talked about, so Kate will send out something to everybody, so you can get those in your
Get a couple
calendar. But
online,
we're going to
too,
do the second
Online.
Thursday of every month, and then if we need to add any, we will. We're also planning to do the meeting, our June meeting, which will be at noon also. We'll start earlier than that at the site itself to sort of have it, we'll give an idea of, it'll be staked off, mostly so you can see the trees, where we'll be able to stand in the trees and say, okay, from here forward is staying, and then anything from here is going to be part of the new site. By that time, we'll have notified abutters about that. We'll also have separate meetings with the abutters, as many as they need. And then we will also have shared with the abutters, or requested from the abutters how they want to get their information about the project from us. It's worked perfectly in practice. There we go. Which one do you want to start?
You can start there.
Start here.
And we'll just toggle through those. So what we've done is we've updated our drawings and our renderings to show the current site plan and the current condition of the drawings, the building itself. As you know, we've had some conversations about the materials with the department and other town members. We did a gray-on-gray scheme, a red-on-gray scheme, gotta get the scream out, and then the blue and gray scheme. It was determined that the gray-on-gray was a little bland, that the blue-on-gray was a better mix, and that was something that was also, we had gotten some preliminary comments from some members of the planning board on some other projects that KBA has done, and that was a color scheme that was done on one or two of those that were mentioned, so it's a very good-looking scheme of colors that represent kind of subliminally a public safety, specifically a police station project.
So same caveat as last time, is this has not been voted on by the select board. The idea is to get some feedback from this board. We've gotten some feedback from the planning board so that we can pile that all together to give to the select board for them to be able to make their decision on what the final building design will look like. That's submitted to the planning board.
Can I just, one thing that I thought the planning board was pretty clear on was that they had a preference for brick, because then it would tie in with the other municipal buildings that this is sort of alongside.
Yeah.
So I would not agree that the planning board was leaning toward blue and gray. I think they're leaning toward brick.
It was one of the ones that was listed on, there were a couple of projects that were shown also.
Oh, right, I understand that, and the style of the buildings, but at the meeting itself, I think most of the members were expressing a preference for brick. Again, you can discuss that when you come before us, but
Yeah.
I do think a lot of the members felt that way. Again, the membership has changed, but it is in line with the other municipal buildings that we have.
Yeah.
And I think there's some nice continuity if we do that.
I guess not to steal the thunder from the planning board meeting, but the reason why it is maintained this was because the budget was based on the old original drawing that we went to town meeting with back in last year, which was all clapboard, which is a much more economical construction method of facade.
I understand.
That, from a budget standpoint, we just can't afford to absorb changing out to making more brick or put bricking on it without compromising either square footage or other things, other elements of the building. So we're kind of going with the price and the aesthetic that we were given at town meeting, and now we're trying to modify it with the budget constraints that we currently have.
And all that feedback will make it to the select board, including if we want to have brick, whether it's to a certain level the whole way or whatever, or
Right.
what color it's going to be, can also be factored in. whether
Brick elements, I don't think anyone expected the entire building to be brick.
Yeah, it's just that it's a.
Yeah, as you drive down the drive here, some of the newer buildings in the development district have brick up to a certain level,
Yeah.
and then a hardy material.
Right.
or
It does
something
tie in
else, so.
nicely with the other municipal buildings if we can possibly find a way to do
Yeah,
that.
I think we've gathered certainly that feedback, and whatever we can get from feedback.
So what you're saying, with the brick, that would increase the cost of the project?
Yes.
But like, do you have any idea how much?
Brick is approximately twice the construction cost of the hardy siding, so every square foot.
So if we go with brick, then that would increase the cost of what the project is right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
And the cost was, the cost was established last year for town meeting.
That's the reason you didn't go with brick.
That was the reason why I was not going.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that was,
There's still an opportunity to at least explore whether we can fit brick in the project.
At the
Through all
current,
sorts
at the
of-
current price, at the current.
Correct, yeah, I mean, we only have 46,225,000 in the project, so.
Right,
If
exactly.
if
We're
we
limited,
calculate
yeah, we're
that all
limited by
in,
that.
it's above that, well, then we can't do the work. But there's, more to it that goes into the calculation than just, everything else has to stay the same, and we have to make this change. So it'll have to be a decision the select board will, and whether that's an alternate or some VE, or, no, this is what we can do.
John, I note with a little bit of disappointment, the facade hasn't retained much at all of the, any architectural elements of the current building. Is there anything here that ties into what the original building looked like?
Other than the general traditional elements of, we've got corner boards, we have fascias and trims, we have frieze boards, we have, there's a small gable over the top of the main entrance above in the middle of the building that we've kind of tried to take that element and not separate it into a true dormer, but a dormer element that also would allow us to break up the main building facade. And the traditional slopes of the roof, 7 on 12s, we're maintaining those. But as far as if you looked at one building and then you look at the existing building and you looked at now, you wouldn't necessarily say, boy, that was really trying to match the same. We did that in the original study, and that's what we went to town meeting, and then we heard a lot of feedback that it's a little generic, a little vanilla, that we need to do something to kind of create more interest, more civic-looking type of a building.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we've evolved to through different iterations to get to where we're at now.
And I think, Mike, that it's not totally lost. I think because this committee and the Historical Commission, and I think you were the first one that brought it up, that says, how can we have a nod to that building in some way?
Right.
Whether that be something on a wall inside the lobby, or something that we could do on the outside, or a design aspect. It doesn't really, a lot of the design aspect doesn't look like the building that's there now, other than the technical things that Kevin was just talking about. But that doesn't mean it's totally out. We got to find a way to remember that building in some way, which is
Right.
something this committee and the historical.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there was value in kind of preserving the historical character of the common area. But, that would be reflected in the look of the building. Question, the gable, is that the triangular shape? So that is similar to the dormer that's on the current building?
Yes.
The dormer has the clock. Could we preserve that clock and put it in the gable?
Yeah, we've got a spot, I think John's highlighting right in the middle of that one over the front entrance.
Yep.
That would be
We're
nice.
not,
Some sort of element there.
some sort of,
Sorry.
a lot of times clocks don't end up working quite right.
Yeah.
Maybe they've gotten better technology, but we haven't been putting clocks on. We've been generally putting either the town seal or the department's badge in a prominent place like that over the front entrance. But if it was determined that we wanted to put a clock in there, there's obviously space to put probably a 3-foot or 4-foot diameter clock face on that part of the gable above the main entrance.
Question, did you intend, when I heard you speaking, I thought you meant, could we use the same clock? Is that what you meant?
That's what I was thinking,
That's what I
ideally,
thought you
yeah.
meant,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, obviously, it would need to be, a clocksmith would have to
Right.
decide whether it can
I
be
thought that's what
repaired.
you meant,
Yeah,
but I'm
so
not
that's-
sure.
That's,
I didn't
Yeah.
pick that up.
I think that would be really nice if we could do that.
yeah.
Make a note on it. We use the clock that doesn't work now, make sure.
As long as it says the same time, that's all we need.
Every school building I've been on, I said, you're in charge of, the person that wanted the clock is in charge of making sure it works. Kathy, you had your hand up, I unmuted you.
Back to the future.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question about the color scheme. So going back, is this going to be set in stone, or is this going in front of the planning board as far as the colors? Because,
Yep, go ahead, sorry.
I'm having a hard time seeing how gray, dark and light gray, or blue and gray are going to fit in that space without looking like it got plunked down there. I don't see that ties Grandview together with the other buildings in the town center, or that it fits with the other buildings in the town center, even if it doesn't connect with Grandview. And I think the look and feel of the building was sort of a little bit of the Grandview and a nod to the old school, but I'm just wondering about the color scheme, that's all.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I'll tell you the way the process is, we're looking for this board to give feedback exactly like that. And the way that will work is we will give all that feedback we've received to the select board for them to ultimately decide the design that then goes to the planning board for site plan review and design review.
Yeah.
Again,
Okay, thank you.
Caleb.
So one thing I noticed with any of these schematics, it looks like this is the only building in the town. You don't get to see how it fits in with the surrounding area. You know what I mean? So it looks great by itself, but then, like Kathy said, you plunk it in, it doesn't match anything.
Well, while we're on this, can I make a comment, please? What we've been hearing a lot about is that we were told we wanted to tie this building into Grandview because you're coming across Sears Street, it's Grandview. But now we're being told planning board likes brick. Who ultimately makes this decision? Because I'm going to stroke out over whether or not the thing is blue and gray, and I don't even know if there's going to be brick on it. Like, who drives this bus? Because what we're being told, right, consistently is, you know, we want it to look so it ties into Grandview. We're kind of merging those, but, and I will just go on the record and say this, and it can be unpopular. I don't want a red building, and I don't want a yellow building. I'll sit back.
So technically, the way it works is the select board will decide on a design that's submitted to the planning board, and it will need to fit in the parameters of the, don't tell me, Caleb, Town Center Development District. Overlay.
So close.
And by the end of this project, I'll nail it. So that has parameters, design parameters that you have to meet. So the select board will decide what the final design is going to look like, given all the feedback, and knowing that it's going to have to go to the planning board too, as long as it meets those design features or regulations. Then the planning board would be the final approval for that.
But there's nothing in the overlay that says brick is a requirement.
No, that you're right. And honestly, I think,
Right after.
like Mike was saying, it needs to fit in with the other buildings that are around it. So that means either it has to fit in with Grandview, or it has to fit in with the other buildings that, on the other side of it, that are brick. Personally, I don't have a strong opinion as to which way it should go, but it can't look like something else that was just plunked down in the middle that has no relationship to anything else around it. That's what we want to avoid.
At the last meeting, we received these preliminary drawings, and I actually asked residents which one they like. I let people pick them out, and this is the most popular.
Really?
That's what everybody picked. They like that the best. Okay.
That kind of,
They didn't like option one that looked like
A big block.
the big block that looked closest like the Union School. Nobody liked the base design, even though that looks like the existing. And a couple of people saw these and they liked this, but they were asking if that was brick or not. They thought if it was a brick facade there, it would look like it blends into the other buildings, but some people thought that kind of looked like an apartment complex. So I'm just going by, I asked people, I've asked probably 15, 20 people, and this has been the most popular. The people,
What option is that, Joe?
this is option two.
and that's the one that fits in most with Grandview.
Yeah, it fits in with
That would fit more with
Grandview. They
Grandview.
like,
This doesn't look like Grandview.
right, and they like the front of it. They just said, you know, it's just nice, clean, basic design, and that's the one everybody seemed to be But that was the 20 people I talked to.
Yeah.
You talked to 20 other people and they
does
fix
vary.
it.
And I think what, each of the designs, and we talked about it
This
last
is the thing,
time,
they thought it was just nice.
as they,
in design.
as we moved on from 1 to 2 to 3, was to try to incorporate some of the feedback that was given, to try, but also to make some design improvements within the building, in the shape and size and scale of the building, with each iteration. So in the design team's mind, as we got further along, minus color changes, or maybe even building material changes, the design was starting to get more and more fine-tuned, given the feedback, and also taken into account.
John, I apologize, I have to leave.
Yep, thanks, Jim. You'll hear this again on Mondays.
Okay.
John, I would hope that the department would have a strong say in terms of the design of that building too, the exterior, not only the exterior, but the interior. But I would hope that they would have equally as,
Oh, certainly the interior for sure, and they've been the ones that have gone to the design charrette,
Yeah.
and they
Even
hold
the
all their
appearance,
meetings
though.
in the building, so.
yeah, even the appearance of the exterior of the building, I think that they should have a major input in that.
We could stay away from red and yellow, we'd see that a win. But I'm okay with the variations, I'm okay with the different color schemes, like we haven't, I don't think we've finalized any of that. I just want to know, because maybe I got confused, like, does it have to be brick, because then we got a problem, but then I've got people telling me, no, it should look like Grandview because it's over that side of Sears Street, you've cleared that up, so.
Well, that's just my view.
Right.
You know, I just, but I think everyone probably agrees that we want it to blend in, you know, and look like its neighbors, whether it's the neighbors to the right or the neighbors to the left.
Chief, how do you feel about green?
No. Just one person's opinion.
Okay, so what we can do is we, you saw that sort of rendering. We'll send out,
I'll get these out to you. They would just,
we'll send it out to the committee, all the different ones, and Select Board is going to talk about this on Monday, so any feedback you want to share before Monday, feel free. You can either send it to me or to Paul or to Mike, Tom, the Select Board email, however you want to get it back. I'm sure they'll be happy to take it. No final decision would come on Monday, unless I guess there was a big consensus, but I think they'd probably want to hear, there's 2 new planning board members, would probably like to hear what they thought, so maybe we can set up a special meeting for them, too, with the design team to hear and see some of the, but I'm sure Barbara is
Right.
liaison and will be able to.
We should also set up a site walk with the planning board. I don't know when exactly that should happen. I don't know if it can happen before the June meeting, but it would probably be a really good idea to do that.
we can work with
Yeah.
Caleb to schedule something like that.
Okay.
Okay, we approved the minutes, everybody knows the next meeting date. So for abutters, I think I mentioned this quickly, we have a draft letter to go out, and we may walk the neighborhood, and we're going to go out further than what is considered just regular abutters to make sure they're in the know, but also to set the first meeting with them, which we're shooting for the day of our, well, we're going to have one meeting the day of our June meeting, but we'll also do something at night. We plan to, the abutters have morning meeting, night meeting, during the day meeting, at least at the beginning, to find out what works best for them, but more importantly, find out how they want to get their information from us, whether it's an email, whether they want to come to these meetings, how do those folks want to hear about not just the project as a whole, but once the project gets going, construction is loud, there's dust, there's all these things. Who specifically are they supposed to call when something happens? And how do they want to know, oh, in the next week, this is what we got going on. So that's big for abutters, but that's also something big that the whole community would like, and whether that's updates on the project website, the town website, email blasts, that sort of thing.
How many abutters are there?
Well, we did 500 feet and 1,000 feet, and it was only a couple of neighborhoods. But I think the idea is folks that know the neighborhood best will be able to tell, well, this, you can see it from this person's house, you can hear it from this person's house, but that whole neighborhood and area will want to know about if there's going to be any changes to traffic patterns. That's the most important thing of this. Next week, we won't be able to use Sears Street, or Sears Street at this entrance will be one way. That's the stuff we want to make sure. How do they want to get that information when it's about to happen, and you can do the reverse, whatever we call rave calls that we use. But we want to find out from them how they want to hear about it.
John, can you make sure that planning staff is aware of the abutter meetings so that planning board members can be informed too? Thank you.
And last is historical. We're going to add sculpture as a standing historical, as a standing item on there. The sort of the next thing for that is when we get the contractor on board and we talk about the demo, or I guess the demo specs, to call out those 3 items in particular that Peter had emailed some of us about exactly what they were, and maybe prior to that, having a meeting with them to just sort of set everybody's expectation about how many of each item we're going to hold and where we're going to hold them, and then what are we going to do with them. So that'll probably be the same spiel I say next time, because we just won't be close enough to it, but we'll leave it on there so we don't forget, and so Wayne and Peter don't think that we forgot.
John, I have a little bit of an update. So back in November, Wayne, Higdon, myself, and Tom took a walk up to the attic to take a look around and see what's there, what may be worth saving. And I think, as the Historical Commission requested, there's a lot of, wood that they may want to save to repurpose, maybe in the shed that they're building. So lots of wood, obviously, up there. There were some other interesting things. There were like old slate blackboards, which kind of think about that today. It's it's long gone from teaching, but things like that. There were old desks, the small desks with the ink wells. Original doors are up there, things like that. So there's a few things. Maybe we should go back up and take pictures and just get.
Take them.
What's that?
To be perfectly honest, if you want them, you should probably just arrange to take them and get them gone.
Yeah.
Because typically when we do, unless we're going to be doing some selective demolition for it, that any materials that are left behind is just going to go in the dumpster. So if there's things that you want, or some things that the town wants to use and repurpose, there's no need to wait for the contractor to get on board and get that rolling. You would be able to take it yourself and bring it to whichever group within town is looking to use them.
Yeah, well, I guess we got to decide what's worth saving then.
Yep. Like, you can work with Tom and I, and we don't have to, like Ken said, we don't have to wait to get that stuff.
Yeah.
I was talking mostly about the building materials, so some beadboard,
Yeah.
there's some
Beams and stuff, yeah.
posts, and then some foundation rocks.
Right, so when you deconstruct, you have to save some of that material.
Yeah, so I think meeting with them to set the expectation that, okay, we can save some of this, and some of this, and for how long is the key,
Right.
Yeah.
So just while we were going through it, we were just talking about ideas as sort of like things we can do to sort of remember the old school. So we talked about a small model reconstruction. Chief's kind of been talking about that, maybe some type of small model reconstruction in the lobby, and maybe have Shawshene students kind of build that. Union School, there's different paintings around in the police station that we could put in the lobby as an example. Historical pictures as well, original doors we already talked about, saving the old clock I noted as well. Something to do with the rocks, we've talked about using those for, maybe for a rock wall, that type of thing. I think Wayne mentioned maybe saving some of the bigger rocks to use as markers, either for the police station or for other historical things in town, as an idea. Yeah, so that was mostly the stuff. I'll put together a list and I'll share it with the committee, and other ideas are welcome, and we can just brainstorm and see what we come up with.
Okay. All right, we're just over. Anybody have anything else? Otherwise, I will say, if you have some feedback that you'd like the select board to hear from you, specifically about those designs, features, or options and colors or materials or anything like that, that you send them along so we can give them that feedback. Again, Monday, they're going to see the pictures and talk and hear about everything you heard about today. And then they will take all that feedback and move forward they see fit.
So there's a select board meeting Monday to review the design?
Yeah, it's just for them to get another update. I mean, I think at the last meeting, all they saw was those last 6 options that you all saw, and sort of got the, our plan is to go to the May meeting, and, so that's changed a little bit, so latest update.
Would there be a possibility to get an estimate on the cost of going brick for like maybe the bottom part, or just so we know what we're talking about, or is that?
Not for Monday, but I'm certainly that's something we're going to work on to try to figure out.
What the cost difference is?
Yep. Like, what are the options we're talking about? It would be easy for them to do, say, okay, brick is twice as much, this is what we have budgeted for this material, and sort of give the high water mark.
Yeah.
Sort of an order of magnitude, but that might not be what everybody, I know it's not what Tom wants, but that might not be what everybody wants anyway, so there may be a scaled down version of that.
Yeah, just so we get just a picture. I'm not saying just, so you can kind
I
of.
think that's, again, not for Monday, but it's something. By
Yeah.
the time we get to our next meeting, we will have an updated schedule, and potentially have those, what are our options for different design features.
Yeah, so we'll just get a feel of how much it would hurt to do it.
You could use real brick, but not structurally, so it could be a thinner brick. Anyways.
It's really part of the facade, an element of the facade. I don't think anyone's expecting the whole building to be brick. As lovely as our building is here, I don't think anyone is expecting us to reproduce that.
What if we leave a brick on the stairway, just one brick? We'll put your name on
Are
it.
you gonna secure it down, or?
It'll say Barbara's Brick. Remember the past.
The bricklayer union wants the whole building.
And actually, I mean, maybe if we can't afford brick, though, that might inform the design to look more like Grandview.
Right.
If planning will sell the increase in cost to the town, you got it.
Not my job.
All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, everybody.